Hello, everybody, and welcome back to DemoPOD, the Demolition podcast with the soon-to-be WWE Hall of Famers. That is Bill Apter, Barry Smash Darsow. I'm your host, Ryan Maher, and guys, it's been a nonstop couple of weeks. We talked about it in our last episode when the news broke about the WWE Hall of Fame. And, I mean, dare I ask, have things calmed down for you guys since then?
Not really. I wouldn't say for me. How about you, Barry?
Not at all, especially, now we're going to the big event. We got a few other things coming up, and it's pretty wild. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you guys always have packed lines at all of these conventions with people looking for signed 8x10s and having their memorabilia and merchandise autographed, pictures, photo ops, the whole nine. I think that you guys are going to be in for some very big lines over the next couple of weeks at these appearances.
Hope so. And the nice thing is we've got a lot of messages and text and phone calls from our friends in the business and giving us well wishes, and that always warms my heart.
Yeah, a lot of and it's funny because all your friends are calling you and texting you, and you wish you could get a hold of every single one of them and thank them, but it's so hard because there's so many. We're very blessed with how many friends we have.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue. I don't know if you could tell me, I was starting to light up as you guys said that you were being contacted by people, because when we did that recording, the Hall of Fame announcement week, Barry, you had cracked a little joke about how last year, Nature Boy Ric Flair called you up to congratulate you on being inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame, and you had to break it to him. No, we're not in. We're not going in.
Right.
Well, the very next day after we recorded that, and I'll have Dan bring it up on the screen, there was a Instagram post from the one and only Ric Flair Nature Boy. That's his Instagram handle. And it's a picture of his Hall of Fame ring with the caption, "Welcome my great friends Barry Darsow and Bill Apter to the Hall of Fame. The most prestigious honor in wrestling you can achieve. Bill, you got stabbed one night trying to help me get out of the ring.
That's right.
And Barry, I've seen you drink 54 beers sitting in an inner tube. Legendary." So we're going to go with the heaviest first. Bill, what's the story on getting stabbed helping Ric Flair out of the ring?
Well, it was in Richmond, Virginia, and we were doing an angle, and I was going to go down and tap dance on Wahoo. And on the way out, one of the fans pulled a knife. I think he was going for Flair, of course, but I must have been in the way, and he stabbed me right in the side. Fortunately, it didn't penetrate my stomach lining, but it was pretty serious. And then we had to catch a ambulance and went to the hospital there in Richmond. And all the guys were teed off because I'm in the hospital getting attended, and they're all sitting on the plane waiting for me. So I got heat for that.
No good deed goes unpunished. You sacrificed yourself. But it's just funny to me to hear you tell that story because, again, you just tell it like as if it was no big deal. This is the same folks, the same man, if you folks remember that when he told us about his anaphylactic reaction and his heart stopping, only 30 seconds. So, I mean, nothing phases you, it seems like. But that was wild. And we have to follow up now with a little bit more of the lighthearted second part to that caption. Because, Barry, Ric Flair has often told the story about Andre the Giant drinking 110 beers. You came in at just under half of that with 54 beers while sitting in an inner tube. Now, when he says an inner tube, why do I have this vision of you and Ric Flair just floating down a river having cocktails? Please explain.
Well, it was actually, I drank 52 and John Nord drank 54.
Oh,
so
okay.
John Nord beat me at it, but Rick did call this year. Now I was at Disney World with my wife, and he called, and we laughed about it. But 52 beers was pretty brutal, and Rick was pretty annihilated himself. I don't think he had 52, but it was just another night out with Ric Flair. So I'm going to leave it just at that because a lot of stuff happened that night.
Well, all right. So, okay, if you and again, I respect that, but when he says an inner tube, I'm assuming this was a hotel pool and you guys were floating around, or
we were on a lake.
Okay, all right,
on a sandbar, laughing our heads off, and you couldn't leave the inner tube.
That's awesome. You know, we're having fun. We're having a lot of laughs, and this is what it's all about, especially with everything that you guys are going to be experiencing over the next couple of weeks leading into the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony on April 17th. It's a whirlwind reunion. I'm enjoying as a fan sitting back and reading all the congratulatory messages that you guys are getting. But that brings me to our special guest on DemoPOD, the Demolition podcast this evening. This is only our second guest ever, and this is very important. I wanted to have this guy on here because he's an old buddy of mine. I know he's a good friend to both Axe and Smash for a very, very long time, and he is a true pro wrestling legend, but no, he was never an actual wrestler. He started out as a photographer, worked his way up to being a member of the editorial staff of Pro Wrestling Illustrated and its family of magazines, and then he became the head honcho, which is why those magazines are lovingly known by wrestling fans as the Apter Mags. He is also the author of a very, very great book, one of my favorite books, written by a wrestling personality. It's called Is Wrestling Fixed? I Didn't Know It Was Broken. From photo shoots and sensational stories to the WWE Network, my incredible pro wrestling journey and beyond. The foreword of that book was written by Jerry the King Lawler, who we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. But the man who wrote it, our special guest, the one and only Mr. Bill Apter. How you doing, sir?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No applause, please. Save it for the end.
I feel like I just saw you 5 minutes ago. Good to see you.
Yes, technical. And Bill Eady, I have to apologize to you. I didn't mean to stab you or Ric Flair. I had too many Diet Cokes, a lot of gas.
So you were going for
handed a knife
Wahoo.
to me.
So you were going for Wahoo after all.
Yes. I wasn't going for anybody.
You know, Bill, I don't know if you heard while you were waiting in the wings, we were talking about all the guys that have been reaching out to both Axe and Smash to congratulate them on their Hall of Fame induction. They were on your podcast just a number of weeks ago, and it was a great listen. You have a lot of history with these two guys. I'm assuming it dates back to the Masked Superstar and Crusher Khrushchev days?
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite days with Crusher Khrushchev, one of Barry's alter egos, was the day that we decided with Nikita, Ivan, Uncle Ivan, and Crusher Khrushchev to go to the White House. And they went in their Russian gimmicks, and the police outside the White House,
the Secret Service uniform division,
and the police, they just welcomed us in. They were big fans, and we actually got in to sit in the senator's office with Nikita's legs up on a desk. Can you imagine that happening today?
No.
What was so unbelievable about that? Bill calls us up and says, "I want you guys in Washington D.C." And we were all like, "Well, what are we going to do up there?" And he goes, "We're going to the Capitol. We're gonna get them." And it was just like, you got to be kidding me. We're three Russians that are hated by everybody in the world, and we're going to go to the Capitol. And Bill Apter made it happen. And
I did. I made a few phone calls.
I just a few people, you know. I called Ronald Reagan up.
Made a few phone calls. And it's funny because the first person I talked to put me through to some senator in his office, and he was a big fan of the magazines I worked for. So it was all set up.
You know, I got to tell you, Bill, and I've said this to you. You and I met back in 2008. You were the master of ceremonies on the Iron Sheik roast that Kayfabe Commentaries put together, and I was one of the comedians. We worked together 3 years in a row. We did the Sheik, then Terry Funk, then Jim Cornette. But I got to tell you, those magazines really meant so much to fans during the era, especially when you were in charge. And I don't think that today's fan can really understand the gravity that those magazines brought.
Well, let me say something. I was print bait before there was clickbait. Because if you read the headlines, they were all sensational stories. I was never the main editor of the magazine. That was left to Stu Stack,
Okay.
Craig Peters, Peter King. I became the face of the magazines by going to the territories and wearing a shirt and tie. And the promoter said, this guy can talk. He's coming here from New York. Why don't we make this look big enough that a reporter from one of the magazines in New York came to cover us? And it worked. And one of the first persons to give me a break, are you ready for this? Was Ole Anderson.
Wow.
Holy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So Ole let us do I came up with an idea to do a segment of press conferences with wrestlers, and he approved it. At that time, we were doing PWI, The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, and about 8 other wrestling magazines. So it was just great. We were publicizing each other. And by the way, Ryan, you told me to hold the joke for the show. So I was one of the few guys that could do an absolute imitation of Ole Anderson.
hit me with it.
Okay, Bill or Barry, ask me, you're the wrestler, ask me what I want you to do to your finish tonight.
Hey, Ole, what do you want us to do tonight?
I don't give a damn what you do. Get in there, do your freaking job, get out of here, have a few beers, leave me alone, come back tomorrow and drive me freaking crazy again.
That's him.
It's when I hosted the Rock and Roll Express for a virtual signing, Ricky Morton was telling some Ole stories, and I said, "Oh, Ole didn't like a lot of people," and Ricky looked at me and he went, "Ole didn't like ice cream."
That's right. That's right. Oh, I gave back the sarcasm to Ole. That's why I got along with him.
What? I'm sorry, Barry. Go ahead.
So, Bill, how did you and George Napolitano work together? How did all that start?
Well, we were with different companies. We were friends. Back in early 1970, when I first started with the magazines, I was shooting pictures at a small arena in Queens, New York, Sunnyside Gardens, and I ran out of film. Oh my God. So I turned around behind me. There was this guy taking pictures along with his girlfriend, and I didn't know it was George. And I asked him if I could buy some film. And he said to me, "Hey, I'll give you some film. You don't got to pay me back. Do you know anybody I could get in with?" And I got him connected with, I think it was Nat Lubay at Ring Magazine. So George and I became very good road buddies, but we worked for different companies.
Nice.
I have to ask, you had that great story about Barry as Crusher Khrushchev at the White House. Do you have any memories of the first time you got to work with the Masked Superstar?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. See, I always knew when I went backstage that a lot of guys didn't know at that point who I was. And he had the mask on backstage, and I kept asking him who he was, and he was super nice and intelligent to me, but he said he is the Masked Superstar. That was it. So I didn't really get to know him really well until my 4th or 5th time at Jim Crockett Promotion, and we just kind of hooked up and started talking about our family and wrestling, and since then we became really good friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell that there's a good relationship, a bond between you guys. So now that has to lead.
But we never invited him to the White House, though. My apologies.
Well, now that leads me to the formation of Demolition in 1987. And Bill, you're the perfect guy to ask this because, you're making your living at the time as a member of the editorial staff of a large family of wrestling magazines. What's it like when you hear the news that two guys that you know and respect so much, such as Crusher Khrushchev and the Maz Superstar, when you find out that they're coming together as Demolition, what's that feeling like? Is it excitement? Is there wondering how it's going to translate? Do you miss the fact that there's no more Crusher Khrushchev or the Maz Superstar? What's it like from the perspective of you getting ready to cover these guys that you already are familiar with?
Well, two things there. First thing, I was very excited about it. I thought they would do great together. But back in those days, and both Axe and Smash know this, our magazines and Napolitano's magazines were banned from covering WWE because they had their own magazine.
Right.
So we had to send people in the stands try to get through security, which was easy back then, with long lenses to get pictures of them. They were not allowed to be interviewed by us. They weren't allowed to be photographed in the studio by us. But we were able to keep kayfabe by running the pictures that we got from our freelance photographers and staying in character. Whatever we saw on TV that they were doing, if we needed a quote from them, we quoted them in character. So I watched them on TV every week, and I thought they were fabulous. And then when they left WWF, we started getting together at the conventions, and then I was able to interview them and tell them how great I thought Demolition had been in the WWF.
Yeah, you were one of the first personalities from the wrestling business, Bill, that I saw on YouTube in its early days. You've always been very active with the Apter chat and Apter's Alley, and you've always kept yourself out there at the forefront. And
well, Ryan, let me tell you something.
Go for it.
When I worked for OneWrestling.com, I was the first guy to put a wrestling video interview on the internet.
Who was it?
I don't remember. It was so long time ago. I think it was just one of my correspondents.
Okay.
And we were just talking about wrestling in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to my original comment before about the gravity of what these magazines meant to fans. I mean, I have to tell you, I was born in 1983, so I was a youngster in the mid-90s. But I remember when my mother or father would go grocery shopping, I would walk over to the newsstand, and there would be all the magazines. And I'd get to pick one, but whatever one I didn't pick, I would be reading the other ones. And there were so many talents that you covered in that magazine before they made it to the mainstream. You know, I was fascinated by all the Memphis coverage that you had in the magazine, because here I am as a 10, 11-year-old kid watching Jerry the King Lawler as the heel commentator on Monday Night Raw. But then I'm reading the magazine, and he's a fan favorite champion of a promotion in Memphis. And then I'm reading about Brian Christopher, and you guys covered about him. And so when he showed up on WWE TV, I knew who he was. Double J, Jeff Jarrett, when they were showing those vignettes of him at the Country Music Hall of Fame. I had already read about it. So I know a lot of guys credit you with starting their careers, and that's why
we were the internet before the internet.
100%.
Yeah, and some of the territories loved that we would come there, and there were some of the territories that didn't want to be covered because they didn't want a lot of their talent to get this big ego head that looked there in the magazine. I was able to effectively give a lot of people their breaks and producing them to promoters like Taz. I got him his first job. This guy named Terry Bollea. I gave him some inroads.
The Immortal.
A lot of guys.
So that has to, make me ask Axe and Smash then. I would imagine when you are in the locker room at a show and you hear that Bill Apter is showing up, are all the talents clamoring to try and get his attention because they want that magazine coverage?
Bill was always welcomed in the locker room that I was in. I know that. He always carried himself professionally, and he wasn't imposing or, pushing things. And I think probably anybody with any sense would want to talk to him because they were going to get extended coverage. Yes, so
Yeah,
You know,
you'd be
but then
surprised.
Bill,
You'd be
yeah, Bill,
surprised that
yeah,
there were some wrestlers that were on such a ego trip, they didn't care.
yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think a lot of the guys were like, just some magazine. Who's going to buy that? And they didn't know really what the impact of being in a magazine. When you guys, when you got us on a cover of a magazine and had a story about us, that the fans read that, and that just gets you over on TV. And a lot of people don't think thought like that.
No, not at all. Not at all. And the wonderful thing is we had people back then of the promotions that let us in, like Ricky Steamboat, Chris Jericho, that I could keep in my portable studio for an hour at a time, and they'd see the end result of them on the cover, and they're going through airports, they're going through Midtown Manhattan, they're going to Minneapolis, and they're seeing
yep.
their picture on the newsstands. That's got to mean something.
You would think it would be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the guys don't have brains, Ryan.
Right.
I met quite a few of those who, back in the early days, there were several wrestlers who would chase me out of the dressing room because they were staying in character. Bulldog Brower was like that for a while till he got me. Crazy Luke Graham, King Curtis. Back in those days, like, what are you doing in here with a camera?
Well, yeah, because I even remember being a teenager setting up the ring for Dennis Corluzzo's NWA New Jersey and being on the ring crew. We weren't allowed in the locker room. I think the first time I was welcomed into the locker room was because Chris Candido, God rest his soul, just brought me in. We wouldn't dare, and this was the late 90s, we wouldn't dare go into the locker room.
He was an adopted nephew to me, but the thing is, eventually, I knew from my mentor, Stanley Weston, who owned the magazine, to just go along with whatever was going on. If you see two guys talking, a finish or whatever, walk the other way unless they invited you over. Listen and just gain the trust of some of the boys in the business. And little by little, people like Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, Gorilla Monsoon would tell the other people in the dressing room that they could trust me.
It's funny you say that because a lot of the guys would say, who in the heck is that guy over there? Like you say, you got a camera and everything, but you knew how to kayfabe everything, like, only take pictures of what you could take.
Yes.
So when they'd ask you, it's like, no, you want him around. That's kind of what the response was,
Thank you.
in Crockett's territory,
Well, the Crockett territory was marvelous, especially when WWE banned us from covering that. Jimmy Crockett said to me, I'm going to put you on TV.
Yep.
And he gave me that segment, Pro Wrestling Illustrated scouting reports. And anywhere I went, people knew me from the magazine from that. And other wrestlers wanted to be in the magazine after seeing that segment. And Crockett started bringing in people from other territories to be on that show.
Yeah.
To that point, Mr. Apter, I want to tell you, and I've had this conversation with Axe and Smash on previous episodes, growing up a kid in North Jersey and the Jersey Shore, WWE was in our faces constantly. Mm-hmm. And I was a fan of WWE, but when I watched those old NWA shows or WCW Saturday Night and the various incarnations of it, I believed that's real. WWE is doing entertainment, but what they're doing over there is real. And I think that you having that scouting report and saying, I'm Bill Apter from Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which immediately when you hear that, you think Sports Illustrated. I think it brought a legitimacy to the product that WWE kind of spited themselves by banning you, because they could have had you at their disposal that whole time, especially you being a Northeast guy.
Yeah, they did not want any competition on the newsstands.
Well, it's a good
And
thing.
then when I left and went to Wow magazine, I remember calling Linda McMahon and telling her that I'm going to Wow, and she said, we love you like family, but we cannot help you at all, because that magazine blew away the quality of their magazine.
It did. I remember.
Yeah.
No,
but
it's
now with Triple H, and I always had a fabulous relationship, professional and personal. And to this day, if I want to go backstage at a WWE show, I'm welcome to be there. I don't bring a camera or a microphone because I'm not with any magazine at this point. I'm just doing my podcast. But he is so perfect in the role. No matter how many people complain about creative or whatever, he's an old school guy
talking about
in
Triple
the
H.
new school world, and he knows the value of what I did and the people that worked at the magazines meant to the business.
Well, to that point, we have Axe and Smash going into the Hall of Fame in just a couple of weeks now. But I got to tell you, Bill, I remember probably about 9 or 10 years ago, I want to say it was the Blue Meanie. Blue Meanie wrote a Facebook post that was about 3 or 4 paragraphs long. It was very well written. And he explained all the various reasons. He made the case why you, Bill Apter, should also be included in the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, we're talking about you capturing moments with Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales. I mean, the true pioneers, Andre the Giant, who was a close friend of both of these men. So I hope that we get to see you there in the coming years. But I do want to ask you about one story in particular.
Before we go there,
okay,
there's something I want to bring up about Bill and Barry.
Please.
Because all the years that they were not able to be in the Hall of Fame because of various legal issues, etc., that happened, this now opens the door to people in following years. This is a gateway now for people like the Dynamite Kid and so many other people that should have been in the Hall of Fame already, but for one reason or another, there was some reason that WWE just had a bad issue with them. But now with you two going in, this opens the gates for so many other people, and I'm so thankful for that.
Well, thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, that's huge, Bill. Thanks.
It's true, because people said, no, Demolition's never going to get in there. They have some legal issues with WWE. And here you are, under their new management, the first ones in from that, I don't want to use the word ban, but I'll use that word list, going in there. And that means so much, not just to me, but to so many other people that belong in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Bill, and I think a lot of that is Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and, Bruce Pritchard, all these guys we've got along with for so many years. And I think that all contributes to that too. And we're thankful to all that.
And I also think that there's a groundswell of fan support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that the new administration, acknowledged that, and we're just grateful for the fans.
I can't wait.
I mean, even just last night, I was going through on Spotify for the audio version of this podcast, reading some of the comments and reviews. I mean, people are over the moon. I'm amazed at how many people that aren't current wrestling fans, but they're fans of that golden era that Demolition were such a huge part of. And they're coming in and saying things like, wait a minute, they're not in the Hall of Fame already? And it's like, yeah, no, it's been a thing. So, it's great for the fans that have been waiting for it, but it's also great for a lot of the old fans that didn't even realize that you guys hadn't been honored yet. And I think it's going to be a great thing. And then, and like I said, in a few years, I think we're going to have to get Mr. Apter in there, because the argument can be made that Mr. Apter, for better or worse, I think for better, created sports entertainment. And it's one of my favorite stories in the book is Wrestling Fixed. I didn't know
it was broken.
I got to tell you, because for those that know, I am a stand-up comic. That's how I actually met Mr. Apter. And one of my favorite performance artists of all time was a man by the name of Andy Kaufman. And if you're a wrestling fan, you're probably aware of the now infamous storyline that crossed over into the mainstream. Probably the first mainstream storyline ever, right? I mean, I can't think of any others before it, where Andy Kaufman was doing his intergender wrestling champion angle, wrestling women at various shows all over the country. And he wanted to break into the pro wrestling business. And he happened to have a very close friend by the name of Mr. Bill Apter. Now, Bill, I have to ask, because I've heard different rumors. I heard that you and Andy initially approached Vince McMahon Sr., and he wasn't interested. And then you picked up the phone and you went back to Memphis and you called Jerry the King Lawler. How did this come to be?
Well, first of all, you being from the Northeast, it's Kaufman.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
Not Kaufman.
I'm such a Gentile.
And as Andy would say, thank you very much. I was a big fan of Andy's when he was on Taxi. Okay, so Andy came to Madison Square Garden, and he was talking to Vince Sr., and Vince was kind of like talking to him, and Vince walked away to talk to Willie Gilsenberg or someone else. And yes, not that old. And he came over to me. He was a big fan of the magazine. And he told me that he's trying to talk to Mr. McMahon about doing something. I said, he'll never do it. So Andy said, what are you doing after the matches? Now remember, he was a character on the #1 situation, not a comedy.
Sitcom,
on TV. Yeah, as Locke Gravis. He said, what am I doing after the matches? I said, I'm going to my apartment in Queens. He said, how do you get there? I said, I take the subway. He said, can I go with you? Okay. So I'm now on the E-train going from Penn Station to Union Turnpike in Queens with Andy Kaufman. People are all looking at him on the subway and waving. So we get up to my apartment, and at that point I was living as the best friend of a girl wrestler from Australia by the name of Susan Sexton. And every other word out of her mouth was the F-bomb. So I walked into the apartment, she says, oh, hi, Bill. Oh, effing Andy Kaufman, eh? So we sat down on the couch, and all he wanted to do was talk about Fred Blassie and Buddy Rogers. And after about an hour of that, Suzanne couldn't take any more of that. She went in the bedroom, put on the headphones, Ramon, Gabba Gabba Hey, and we never saw her again. So I told Andy, I said that Vince McMahon is not going to let him do that. So I said, I've got a friend in Memphis named Jerry Lawler. And he knew Lawler from the magazine coverage. And I said, let's call him. So he said, well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, we're wrestling people. And we have an idea. We're up all night. So we called Jerry Lawler. Nobody knows what this means anymore, of course. We called Jerry Lawler.
This audience.
And he said, you got Andy Kaufman Latka Gravis in taxi in your roach-infested apartment. And I put him on the phone, and that put the key in the ignition, and Lawler and Jarrett took it and created that whole scenario. Jerry Lawler still today, and I just talked to him yesterday actually, still credits me with bringing Andy Kaufman to him and helping create the first real wave of sports entertainment. And he told me he once talked to Vince Jr. about it on a flight, and Vince could have kicked himself in the butt for not somehow getting that done.
Now, before we go any further with this, I have to ask Axe, because Smash, I don't know if you were in the business yet when this whole storyline took place, but Axe, you were, right? So do you remember, because I know over the years, as different celebrities have gotten involved in wrestling, there's some mixed reviews from wrestlers about how they feel about that, bringing an outsider in. Now it's more commonplace. I mean, Logan Paul's a WWE superstar. They bring in
remember, it was Memphis. It was a small territory.
No,
it wasn't televised everywhere.
I get that, but what I'm asking is that what is the response from a lot of the wrestlers in the locker room during that era? Are they saying them to themselves, what the hell is this Hollywood comedian guy doing, getting involved in our business? Is he going to make a mockery of it? What's the locker room reaction to a storyline like that? Do you guys have any memories?
Personally, I remember there was a big buzz. I mean, it was a positive reaction.
Okay.
There was no, I personally don't remember hearing any ridicule or downplaying. Probably a lot of the guys wish they were involved in the angle.
Of course.
Because it was over the top. I mean, it not only had wrestling fans talking and buzzing, it had entertainment fans and movie people. And everybody.
Keep in mind that when they did the David Letterman show, and they kayfabed everybody on this whole thing, I was shooting pictures behind the cameras along with Craig Peters, one of our editors, and we took the film to the New York Daily News, and they put it on the AP wire, and it went all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a Comedy Central documentary in, the mid-90s that basically covered that whole thing. And it was basically all these different celebrities from that time period that were friends with Andy that thought he was destroying his career by getting involved, but he didn't care. He was that passionate about wrestling. He wanted to be involved. Smash, go ahead.
Judd Hirsch.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I was just thinking about getting in the business around that time. And when I saw that on David Letterman, the first thing I thought is, that was a shoot. He really punched him, knocked him out. That was the most unbelievable thing I thought. And it really made me want to be in this business.
It wasn't supposed to happen.
Good that was.
It wasn't supposed to happen. They improvised it. When that ended, they actually took them separately out of the building. And I went up to Jerry's hotel room about 2 hours later, and I knocked on the door, and somebody opened the door, and I looked behind the door, and it was Andy. He said, "What did you think?"
Wow.
Yeah.
But I really believe that was the door opening for all these other people that wanted to be involved. Now it's commonplace. I mean, you got sports individuals, you got entertainers,
you got
musicians,
Jelly Roll,
everybody,
the top guy.
Everybody wants to be involved. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's almost at this point, and I saw that too, and I'm not knocking anybody because especially, look, Diamond Dallas Page said it best when he made fun of the fans that went up in arms when David Arquette won the WCW World title. He goes, I get it. He goes, but if we asked any of you fans, you want to become the world heavyweight champion, you're going to say yes. So I can understand why a celebrity, when they reach that status, if they have the ability to go partake in something they love, why wouldn't they do it? But I really do believe Andy brought it to a whole other level.
You know what's scary is when you get a guy like Bad Bunny or Logan Paul, or even back in the day when Shane McMahon was active in the ring and going toe-to-toe in great matches with someone like a Kurt Angle,
Yeah.
you wonder how many other celebrities or non-wrestlers that work in the office at WWF have that kind of talent.
Yeah. When I saw Jelly Roll the other day, he did an unbelievable job. He did an incredible promo. You know, they got him training him in the ring, doing everything. I mean, he's doing a really good job for somebody that's outside the business. When we were in it, we'd see a celebrity. It was kind of like, now the celebrities are drawing.
Yeah, they're bringing in new
Tom Brady's going to be there, right?
Is he really?
Supposed to be involved somehow in WrestleMania. Tom Brady.
Oh,
yeah,
I heard that too.
I'm reading that he's going to be involved some way, shape, or form. There's some stuff going on because it was actually Gronkowski a number of years ago had a deal with them before he decided to go join Tom Brady over in Tampa. Yeah, it's a rite of passage now. I mean, look at all of these different athletes when they win a championship, right? What do they get? A WWE replica title. You know, and that's across all sports. So it's become
They love it.
And that's why I think it's great to see all this coverage now. But Barry, Smash, to your point, I was watching this past season of WWE Unreal that they just released, and I was not aware of this. The reason Jelly Roll decided to lose the tremendous amount of weight that he lost was because of his involvement with WWE. And he said that, there was that situation where he fell after doing that chokeslam spot and he couldn't get up. They had to help him up. And he said that's when he went, all right, I have to make some changes. And I think he's lost over 250 pounds.
250 pounds. You know what? I think Action Smash ought to hit the ring. I think at WrestleMania we should just not tell anybody and just hit the ring. Let's do it.
You brought up WWE.
How about if you hit the ring and I'll walk down slowly?
You brought up WWE Unreal.
Demolition.
I've only seen 2 episodes, and it annoyed me only it took me from 1970 in the business. I was watching it since the early 60s, but it took me from 1970 to maybe 10 years to really get into the place where I could learn all of that and travel with the guys and be in the meetings and things like that. Now you turn on WWE Unreal and you get it all in 1 hour.
Yeah. Yeah, we did an episode about it 8-9 months ago. Actually, today, when we record this, it's March 18th. This is the 1-year anniversary of the recording of our first episode. So I believe it was episode 6 or 7. Forgive me for not knowing the number off the top of my head, but we talked about WWE Unreal and what we thought it was going to be. And, it's interesting because, we're talking about everybody writing wrestling books and stuff. That's how a lot of the fans learned the insider terminology. I mean, I go back to Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You never called anybody baby faces or heels. It was
no. We were Sports Illustrated of wrestling.
Yeah, fan favorites and rule breakers. That was the distinction that you gave. And now, like you said, you just turn on Netflix and all the secrets of the business are exposed, for lack of a better term. But hey, Bill, I blame you, Mr. Apter. You brought Andy Kaufman in, and it changed the whole game.
My book. It's Wrestling Fix. What's the answer, Ryan?
I didn't know it was broken.
Thank you. Jim Cornette said about my book, he says, and it's 10 years now it's been out, says, Bill Apter's book sucks because he doesn't bury anybody. I don't give anything away in my book. It's all stories about my relationships with the wrestling business. Yeah, and it's a fun book. You can still get it on Amazon. Or you can get, that's a story I got to tell you.
Go for it.
The audio version, they had a guy call me and say, hi, Mr. Apter, I'm going to do the audio of your book. I said, why? He said, well, I did Dusty Rhodes' book, audio, and I listened to part of that. I'm Dusty Rhodes. No. He said, well, if you want to be part of it, your keys may pop. I said, I'm a broadcaster. It's okay. And I said, unless I do the audio version, we take it off the table. I said, the people that have known me from TV since the 70s know what I sound like. And I do all my imitations of the wrestlers and everything. So, yeah, they were going to not have me do it.
That would have been a shame, and I'm glad you stood your ground. And I also want to thank you for trying to protect me from the late great New Jack back in 2009 at the Terry Funk roast, because he got a little angry with me, and you stood up and told him.
Wasn't it now that you're bringing it up, wasn't there a Scott Hall incident too?
That was the year before, and that was with another comedian. And we won't talk about that. But no. My was with New Jack, who he actually called me a couple days after and apologized. But it's funny because someone actually said to me that night, and I won't say who. They're like, "I can't believe you went after him the way that you did." And I said, "Well, it's a comedy roast, And I've talked to Axe and Smash about this over the years. That format, the roast format, it only works with certain guys. It worked with the Iron Sheik because he's the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, but he got angry a few times. He didn't get it. A lot of the guys because I hosted it, a lot of the guys were, after seeing how he reacted, were doing it more like a tribute. I don't know if and the fans weren't getting it. The fans they didn't understand what a roast is,
Yeah, well, and I think too, Terry Funk, God rest his soul, he was so revered and respected that I think people felt weird making fun of him.
Yep.
Whereas with the Iron Sheik and Jim Cornette, those guys are more. I mean, not that Terry Funk wasn't a character, but different kind of character. So I've gotten to know you quite a bit over the years. And when Axe and Smash told me they were doing your podcast, I was like, find out if he'll do ours. So,
thank you.
And we were really glad to have you. I know you're going to be watching on April 17th. When Axe and Smash take their rightful place in the WWE.
Oh, I will. I wouldn't miss that for the world.
That's awesome, guys.
I'm so proud of both of you. I really am, for staying with the business and not because of everything that happens, deviating from it, and not showing up at FanFest. And you're so gracious to the fans and to the public. You're two genuine, really good guys.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, thank you. And I'll tell you what, you've done so much for this business, and we both love you. And thank God you did what you did, because you helped make this business what it is today.
Well, I really thank you for saying that. And, I'm never going to retire from this. So I'll see you at the matches.
I hope you're around for a long time, Bill, because I still love getting my news from you. Thank you so much.
You know what, Brian? I'm going to tell you my dream. Dick Van Dyke turned 100 a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
When I'm 100, I want to let him out of the old age home when he's 130 and go for a walk.
I love it. I love it. I don't know how. I think we have to end on that one. I don't know how to follow that. Check out the brand new axeandsmash.com, which is now live. You can check out all the appearances that Demolition's going to have coming up on their way to the WWE Hall of Fame and beyond. There's also a merchandise store where you can check everything out, and a specific link to our YouTube channel so you can like, comment, subscribe, all things DemoPOD, the Demolition Podcast. Give us a follow on Instagram at Demolition Pod. Axe and Smash are available at Search and Destroy You on Instagram. I'm there at Ryan Maher Comedy. And Mr. Apter, you still got the Apter chat, Apter's Alley. Where can everybody find you on YouTube?
Well, my YouTube channel is the number one wrestling video. I will be hosting the Bruno Forever event in Pittsburgh on April 25th. I'll also be hosting the Rock and Roll Express Invitational Tournament in Tennessee on May 30th, and the Gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina in July. So lots of bookings. Yeah, going on. So come and say hello.
Busy man. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of DemoPOD, the Demolition Podcast. I'm Ryan Maher. That's Axe and Smash. That's Bill Apter. Bill, take us out. Where are we going to see you?
We'll see you at the matches.
Here comes the action.